So good morning to one and all. I think we did this topic yesterday. Okay, so that is session ID. Now we are going to start with the new one, that is your session life cycle. Okay, so like we will be just considering that we are going to have an web application, and we are going to use a web browser, and we are going to make a request. So how your session is going to work in this whole procedure. So as in visitor, what I am going to do is I'm just going to use a web browser. I'll make a request using the web browser, and that request is going to the web server. Okay. Now that web server is going to give me an authentication module. So that module can be your login page. So considering that say facebook.com is one of the web application which I am trying to access. So I'm just writing in the URL saying that facebook.com, and when I hit to the enter button, that request is going to the web server of the Facebook. Okay, and then from there the authentication module is going to be sent to me. That can be your login page. Okay, and in that login form I am going to put my username and password, okay, to authenticate me. So which is again returning back to your web server. Now, what is the job of the web server here is it is going to return to me a valid session ID. That means a unique session ID which is not been allocated to anyone else. Okay, that is just for me. And now that ID is coming along with the response to me that my login has been done successfully. Okay, now the visitor's web browser can issue any numbers of requests to the web server. Now here the conditions also apply, that this kind of n number of requests I can send it to the web server during the session which has been now generated between the client and the server, which is going on between the client and the server, only when I am going to use some technology, some methods which will help me to maintain that state of the user. Okay, now say for example I have just logged in. So for login I have sent the request, okay, that I want to access this web application. So on that the server has sent me something to which I have to authenticate myself, and I have done that. Again I am sending the request to have the access to my home page, or suppose I want to just switch back to my profile page. So what I am doing, I'm just clicking onto the profile, but that is like one type of a request I am doing, that I want to access that profile page. When I'm not using any type of methods like your cookies or an URL rewriting, so what basically will happen, that accessing profile page which is been considered as a next request, a second request, is again been considered as a new request by your server, and it will be creating a session ID for that. Okay, it has been considered as a new request every time, if you remember that diagram. So now what will happen, I have to do, I have to make one single session ID, unique session ID, for the whole web application, what the user is doing it, what user is using it right now. Okay, so in within that session, within that application, whenever the user is traversing within the application, is been considered one single session. So for each request I'm not going to create a session, I'm not going to provide a session ID, I'm just going to provide a session ID for the whole application. Okay, till the time the visitor is using the application, using the web browser, he can make any numbers of requests to the web server, and that is only possible when I'm going to allocate the session IDs to the client. Okay, that ID is going to be useful for the web server to identify the user. Okay, because it is uniquely given to all the users, so it is very easy for the web server to identify all the users. Fine. Now once the visitor is closing the browser without explicitly logging out, we are just ending with this session. So there are two ways like we can end the session. Either one is like we can have closing the web application, we are automatically going to close the session. Second option available, that is what, closing the web application but still your session is live, only it is going to get over when you are going to log out from the application. So these two options you have, and that two options you can implement with the help of the methods like cookies. Okay, now when I talk about the session tracking API, it says that the session tracking is must, because when we talk about just a session without implementing any method, okay, just to have the, we what we want basically, we want to store the information of the user and of the interaction which happens between client and server for the future needs. But when we talk about only session, when I'm not including those methods which will help me to do that, so session is not going to have that storage of information, because it is first of all going to use an HTTP protocol and the web servers, where supposed to be, there is an expectation that the server is going to store the information about the session or about the users, but it is not happening because they both are being said that they are the stateless. Okay, so the protocol which I am going to use to pass my data, as well as the place where the data needs to be get stored, but then both are being considered as a stateless. So we have to make use of certain APIs, certain methods which will help to store those information into the web server, and that can be considered as a session tracking API. Okay, now we have four methods. We'll see one by one all the methods. Out of that, I think two methods are very easy. One of the method is cookies. I'm not going to give an example also for that, because we have already done enough program of the cookies in your cookies chapter. Okay, and one is going to be your user authentication. So it is very simple method. What user authentication is saying that if you really want to maintain the information, if you really want to store the information of this session, so what you can do is you can just provide the, or you can just ask for an authentication credentials from the login page, which the user or the client is going to see whenever they are going to ask for the web pages or an application. Okay, so that time what we can do, one simple thing is that we can just create a space, or we can just have a resource in our web server, and we can ask for the authentication by the client needs to pass that authentication. Once it is getting clear, then the client is able to access the whole application, and during that session whatever happens, a log is going to generate and the information is getting stored into the web server resources. That one option we have. Okay, now another option is what we can have, the HTML hidden field. So what is the first option is saying that the storage is going to happen inside the web server. Okay, now second option, that is what your HTML hidden field. Now what HTML hidden field is going to do, here we are going to create a unique hidden field, or we can say a text field, which is going to be hidden, which is going to be invisible. Okay, this hidden field is being created inside your server side scripting file, that can be your servlet file, because just now we know only one server side technology that we can use to develop the server side application, that is your servlet. So considering that, in servlet what we are going to do, we are just going to write some code which is going to have some invisible hidden text field, which is going to have the maintenance of the state of an user, or we can simply say that that text field is going to hold the information of an user, of the interaction which is happening between client and server. It is going to maintain that into that text field. Okay, now what type of information that hidden text field is going to maintain, it is all those data which, where the navigation has happened, like where the user has moved from one page to the another page. Okay, so these all kind of information is being stored inside your hidden text field. Now in such cases what will happen, we will store the information in the hidden field and we'll try to get it from the another servlet. I'll give an example for this. We have a program for the HTML hidden field, you will understand more what I'm saying. Okay, I'll just show you the first, the application and the advantages and disadvantages, and will move to the directly your example. Okay, now we'll see the real life example or an application, that how we are going to use the hidden form field. So for example, I have numbers of web pages in my web application. Okay, and it is like you are commenting one web page, so that the another web page can identify your the other web pages who is also having some comment, or you can say a page name or a page ID. So if I have five web pages, I am giving five different page IDs, five different page names. Okay, or simply I can do what, comment to each every page, so that your pages are going to understand to each other with that ID and with that name. Okay, and that ID and that name is not going to be visible to your client, it is just been there in your hidden text field. Okay, That means the understanding of the pages of each other is not been seen to your client. It is not for your client purpose, it is just for your server purpose. That server needs to have that tracking, that how and where the client is moving from one page to the another page. I hope I'm clear what I'm saying. Okay, now what can be the advantage of the hidden form field? That it is not at all dependent on cookie. Okay, as we told that cookies are not dependent on sessions, but sessions are dependent on cookies only when the sessions are going to use a cookie as a method to track the session. Okay, but when we have the other methods like this hidden form field, the cookies are not involved, so no matter that it is disabled or enabled, so cookie is not going to come into the picture. Okay, now next is what your disadvantages of the hidden form field. That it is maintained at server side. I told you that it is going to be maintained at the server side. It is for the servers to make understand, to track that information, that how and where the navigation is happening within the application, how the user is moving from one page to the another page, how it is understanding, how it is recognizing each pages. Okay, so it is not for the client, it is for the web application and the server. Now, what can be the another disadvantage? It needs an extra form submission required for each pages. But obviously, if I have a page ID and page name for each web page, so I need that page to be submitted to the web server individually every time when the request is going to be made. Okay, and only the textual information can be used. We are just understanding and we are just learning from the very starting that your cookies, your sessions are going to deal with only the textual information. That means whatever information I am going to track and store, it is going to be in the human readable format. That is your textual information. Now, this is your example. Okay, for the hidden form field, again the same type of diagram. We have a form which is accepting a name in the text field. On clicking of this button, it should get redirect to your servlet file, that is your first servlet. Okay, which should give one welcome message. So that means what I have to do is I have to accept the input from here, and that inputs needs to get displayed over here with a welcome message. Okay, and in the same file I'm just going to have the button that can be created with the help of an HTML tag inside your print statement that we will see. Okay, there is a possibility that we can have some HTML tags if I just wanted to add some or the other components into my servlet file. Okay, now here I can add a button click. Now clicking on this button, I can redirect to the servlet 2 file, which is going to accept the session from your servlet 1. Like that is going to be carry forward this session to the servlet 2, and it is going to put me, or it is going to give me a again a message. Okay, that response, the expected response. Now here in this file, you can see there is one more component available, that is your invisible text field. What is going to happen over here is when I'm going to accept some value from here by authenticating. Okay, let's just consider we don't have only name, I have password also. Fine. Now what I'm doing, I'm just authenticating the client in this web page. I'm just taking the values over here. I know that the client has been authenticated with the given values. Now that values are can be stored into your text field. Okay, so whenever the servlet 2 needs to have the response again, so for example if the request comes back from this client page, okay, it don't need to authenticate it because it is live on the session, and that authentication values are already stored into this text field. Otherwise what will happen again, if this application been run, so the request which is been sent to the servlet 1 is been considered as a new request. I told you at the very starting that the session, whenever the request is going to be made by the client to the server, every time the request is going to be considered as a new. So I don't want to make that because it is going to increase the overhead over the application. So what I want is that it should consist of the previous information, and it should be there at least till the sessions are live. Okay, so what I'm doing, I'm just keeping these values over here. Okay, for generating response, I don't have to go back to the client and then again expect the same values, then same procedure should happen over here, and then I can give the response back. Okay, second time, third time, 100th time, if I'm giving the response over here, I should get that values from this hidden text field. Okay, so this is how your session is going to have the tracking of information using the hidden form field. Now we'll see the example for this. If you just remember, we had only one input which I am going to take from the client, that is will be in the form of text that you are taking as a name, and I have given the text field as what the text field can be identified with the name called username, and I have a button that is going to be named as go. Okay, and once the button is clicked, where I am going to be redirected, which I have written inside your form tag, that is action equals to first servlet, that is your servlet file name. So that file name is what your first servlet. I told you we don't need any type of extension whenever we are going to mention it inside the action tag, because it is within the application, same project, same directory, it can identify it very easily. Now when I come to this file, that is your first servlet.java, which needs to be directed from your first client page. Okay, so what is going to happen now? Again, I am having three packages which I was talking, I think, from the first chapter of your first unit, that we have two packages to deal with your servlets. We have one IO stream. Okay, and then we are going to have the class name as your file name. We're going to extend the HTTP servlet. Why HTTP servlet? Because for creating session, we have an interface called it as HttpSession. Okay, and that comes from your second package. Okay, now this is the reason why I am just going with the HTTP servlet. So here we have extended HTTP servlet class. It is a class, that's why we have used extends keyword. Now we have a method. When we talk about the second package, we have two methods, either do get and do post. It is completely dependent on the developer or you who is going to code the program. You can use do post as well as do get. It just depends. The difference is only the length of the data which is going to be sent to the another page. Okay, where it is going to be redirected. So it is completely the choice of an developer, where whether they want to use a do post method or a do get method. I gave you the difference. It is completely your choice. Fine. Now inside the method we have two objects which has been created, that is request object and response object, of two specific interfaces which are responsible for having the request and response. So HTTP servlet request is an interface. Similarly, HTTP servlet response is an interface, comes from your second package. Now I have written two statements over here, that is like setting the content type in which form my client is going to see the response, that is in the form of text. It is going to be displayed in the HTML web pages. Now I am writing print writer over here. Yesterday, if you have remember, that we had done one program where in the first servlet file I have not mentioned this because we were not printing any welcome statement. But in this program, in this example, the first servlet file where the client page has been directed, okay, there we have welcome user as a message. So that needs to be printed into that particular stage. So we need to have a print writer class. Okay, now whenever I am going to have a value which I am going to take it from the client, what I am going to do, I am going to use a get parameter method which is available inside your servlet, and that parameter get parameter method is going to help me to fetch the value from the text field whose name is username, which we have defined in the HTML file. We'll fetch the value, we'll store it into your n variable, and I'm just going to simply print one statement saying that welcome that n value. So considering that in the text field the user has given what, ABC, so what is going to be printed, welcome ABC. Now the important part, which is like invisible text field, which we needs to create it, which will track our information. Okay, so what we are going to do, first of all, we have to mention it in this program that after this file where it has to be redirected and remapped, so we have written in the form tag that action equals to second servlet, that is your next file name. Okay, and this should happen on the button click, that again named as what, go. Now in HTML you have an option that you can make any uh, component as an hidden component. So I have a text field which is going to work for me in this specific program. So what I am going to do, I am just going to say that type equals to hidden. Okay, and then I'm just mentioning the name of that component, that is what I am giving a name as uname. Okay, and then I'm just going to have the value. So it is a name and value pair. So I am having a new variable, that is what your uname, and then I'm going to have a value from the n variable where the abc is currently stored. So now what is going to happen, I'm just going to collect the value from the variable that is n. Okay, and that n value is going to be stored into your uname variable. Okay, and that value is coming from where, from the text field. Now what is happening over here, what hidden field we have created, now that hidden field is including the name, that is what, abc. Okay, so now that hidden field consisting of name called as abc, now the servlet don't have to dependent on the client, because it is already storing one information, that the name which has came from the text field of the client page, it is something called it as abc. It doesn't have to go back and again get that same information. It is now already having it into its hidden field. Okay, now when it's going to be clicked, so it is going to get passed to your second servlet file, where I'm going to again have the same things. Okay, same things been repeated over here, that is same servlet packages, io file, io stream packages. I have a file name called as second servlet. I'm just going to extend the http servlet over here. I'm again having the method, it is dependent on you, I told you. Okay, so we have an interfaces for request and response. I'm just going to set the content type. Okay, and then again I'm using the print writer, because we have to print hello user. So okay, so if you remember the diagram, we have just printed hello user, so for that need we have print writer. Now again here I'm going to have an n variable, because the value which is coming from the client, then I just need to display it. Okay, so I'm just using again the same method, that is your get parameter method, but here I am using the hidden text field name, that is what, uname. So if you remember, I'm not going back to the client page whose name, the text field name was username. Okay, so if I'll just show you the html file over here, see the text field name was username, and the another name which I have given as an hidden text field, I have given as what, uname. So now in this particular page, whenever I want to have a response for my client, I am not going back to the main file from where I'm going to get the value. I'm going to the hidden field from where the values are stored. Okay, and then it is going to print a value that is with the hello n. So now this n variable and the previous file n variable are not same, they're completely different, they are from the different file, their scopes are different. Okay, so don't consider it as same, it is a variable which is a new one for this file. Okay, so now this is all about your hidden form field. Now the another method which is present to work similarly with a session, which is also going to help me to track the information and keep the information, so that it is going to be used during the session. So next method is what, your url rewriting. And this method we have done it in one of the chapter, I don't remember that chapter, but we have done it either in the third or the fourth chapter. Okay, so this url rewriting is going to help me to have a rewriter engine which is going to keep the track of the information which is coming from a client. Okay, now it is having one syntax which I'll just show it to you first. So it is like one format. I think if you remember, I don't know whether you have just went to that chapter again or not, but this was a format given into that particular topic, and we have done it in a very depth, that topic, when we have done url rewriting. Okay, so what is the format for having the url rewriting? You are going to have a url. Now you have to understand the difference between the hidden form field and the url rewriting. First of all, see, url rewriting only going to deal with the links, okay, hyperlinks, and your hidden form field are going to work with the text fields. Okay, so it is going to work with a component, and your url rewriting is going to work with the hyperlinks. Now here what is going to happen, you're going to mention a link, as I told you that it is going to work with an hyperlink. So you have to mention a link first of all, that is your url, and then you need to inform that name one is equals to value, and that is again it is going to be a name and value pair. Okay, so you have to mention the next context path to which it has to be get redirected. Okay, so that you're going to give over here, that is a token values, it is something known as token values. Okay, now if you have more than one name and value pair, you can just mention it by separating with the help of a present. Fine, now we'll just see with the example. Okay, what advantages and disadvantages we have? It is always going to work whether you have cookies disabled or not. It is completely independent of your cookies. Okay, it is not required, extra form submission which was required in your hidden form field. Okay, so that disadvantage has been removed by your URL rewriting. Now, what disadvantages we have? As I told you already, that it is only going to work with a links. Okay, and obviously it is going to send only the textual information, that is a human readable information. Now again we have the same diagram, only the thing is that the same page, the same servlet files, only thing is that your hidden component that is your can be a text field is been replaced by your hyperlink. Okay, that means this link is going to now keep the information of all the details, so that values come from here. Okay, that value is going to be appended to this particular link, so that whenever the servlet 2 wants to display any information, it is not going to go back to your client, it is going to go to your link, which is having some appending values and then names. Okay, now we'll see the example. I hope you know how to create an HTML file. Okay, we have created a name label, and then we have accepting the string values, and then the name for the text field, which we have given as what your username. Okay, and while on click of the submit button, where we are going to get redirected your servlet 1 file. That servlet 1 file which I have given over here is first servlet. Just rename it whenever you're going to study. Okay, again the same three packages, again the class name, then we have extended the HTTP servlet interface. We have two servlet interfaces for request and response. We have the response content type, in which form we are going to display the information to the user. For that displaying, for making that visible, we have a print writer class. Now again I am accepting that information, that can be the name of the user. That how we are going to do it, we are just using the get parameter method. Okay, and then we are mentioning the text field name from where I am going to accept the value, which is getting stored again into your n variable, printing again the welcome message. Now there we have done the hidden form field. What we are going to do it over here is we are going to make an hyperlink. So we are not going to create a text field which can be hidden, but we are going to create an hyperlink. So how we can create an hyperlink in the HTML? Like this way, we are going to use an href tag inside the anchor tag. This is an attribute, this is your anchor tag, and where I have to redirect to, that is your URL you have to mention. So what URL you are going to mention, which file you want to redirect to, that is your second servlet, that is your next file. Okay, and then you have to mention the name and value pair. So what name you are giving it over here, so it is been separated by a question mark, that is there in your syntax only. It is not coming from somewhere else, but it is from your syntax. So this is a name which we have given. Okay, and the value is what we are assigning, the value which is been holding by this variable, that is our n variable. So again, considering that the text field which the client page was having, that is the text field named as username, is giving me a value called as ABC. Now this n variable is having the ABC. This value is been now assigned to this uname. Okay, and the link name what we have given is what, visit. So now when we click onto the link, we are going to redirect to the next file, that is your second servlet file. So again, the same thing which we have written, I don't need to repeat it again and again. Okay, same package is the class we have created, we have method. Now we have interfaces for request and response, we have a content type, we have a print writer, because we are also going to have again one you can say a welcome message or a hello message for that. Okay, again we created a variable over here. You can see over here, we are not accepting the value from the actual text field from the client page, but we are accepting from the link which we have appended the value to this specific name what we have given it. Okay, so this is how it is going to print the value for you. I hope you have understood this URL rewriting. Last method is your cookies. Like we have done enough, so I don't have any program to show to you, because we have done almost 2 to 3 programs in your cookies chapter. Okay, so I hope you know what cookies are. It is a small piece of information which is storing the information in the form of text files. Okay, which has been sent by your web server to your client in the response header along with your response, and it is going to help me to maintain a session information. It will help me to track this session. Okay, it can have numbers of information about the session, like it can have the session IDs, it can have the last accessed time, creation time, everything it can maintain it. Okay, so cookies are also going to help me to have the session tracking. So we had 4 methods, if you can just recollect it. So we had a user authentication, we had you can say the URL rewriting, we had this cookies, and then the second one was your hidden form field. Okay, now we are just going to the last program of this chapter. I'll just try to finish it so that we can done with this chapter also. We'll just see one example of your HTTP session interface. Okay, so till now whatever you have seen the example, it is exactly the same. Instead of just having the methods for the session, we are directly applying the HTTP session interface now. We are not using any of the other methods, but we are using directly the HTTP session interface. So again, considering the same program, we are going to accept a text value, okay, whose text field name is username. On click of the submit button, it is going to get redirect to your first servlet file, that is your first Java file. Now when I talk about this file, again, if you can see till here, okay, it is all same. Even you talk about the URL rewriting, or you can talk about the hidden form field, till here this statement, it is all same. You can just go through once if you feel that anything is different. Okay, it is nowhere it is different, it's all same. Oh, just you have to mention it now, the HTTP session interface over here instead of your URL rewriting and your hidden form field. Okay, so now as I told you that what is the two option we have if I want to create an object of the interface. Now you have an HTTP session interface. You can be able to use the HTTP session in your program, in your servlet file, only with the help of an object. Okay, and that object is going to be created, that instance is going to be created for a specific interface, that is your HTTP session interface, with the help of two methods, two options available with us. That is, one is a default method, that is your get session, and the another one which is having the boolean value. Okay, so if I mention true, so what is going to happen, and what if I'm mentioning false, what is going to happen, we should know it. So when I talk about only the get session method without any boolean values present inside this, what is going to happen, it is just going to give me the current session which has been associated with a request. Okay, and if at all the session is not been associated with a request, it is going to create a new one for me. Okay, when I talk about the second way, where I can have the same method, but I'm just writing a boolean value as what, true, what is going to happen, always it is going to give me a new session for each request. And if I'm writing false, what is going to happen, it is not going to create a new session, but it will help me to get the pre-existing session which is available with the associated request. Okay, so not going with the boolean values, but we are just going with the default one, which will help me to create an instance for an HTTP session interface. Okay, now if you remember, in the cookies we had a set cookies and a get cookies method. So add cookie method, not set method, sorry, add cookie method, which will help me to add the cookie into the, or along with the response. Okay, so now if I just wanted to have this session which should consist of some value which needs to be passed to the another file, so what I am going to do is I'm just going to use a method which will help me to do that in the session, that is using your set attribute method. So if you remember, say for example HTTP session, I am just replacing with cookie, and I have created an object name called as ck. So what we used to do it over there, ck dot add cookie, and then sorry, request dot add cookie, and we used to write the cookie name inside the brackets, right? So what we are doing, we are just adding the cookie along with the response. Now here also what we are doing, we are adding this session along with the response which needs to be sent back to the next page. Okay, so what we are doing, we are just using the object of your session interface dot, the attribute name is going to change. There it was your add cookie, here it is going to be set attribute for your session. Now it is again a name and value pair. Okay, so this is going to be the name which I have created. Okay, it is been identified, like your session is been identified by this name uname, and it is holding some value. That value is coming from your n variable, considering say abc, the user has given abc in the text field. Okay, now once it is done, where it has to be redirected, it is going to be redirected to your second servlet file. I'll just show you that file now. So again, we have the packages, we have created a class, we have a method, response, content type we have defined, we have written the print writer class. Now the difference is going to be what, again we are creating an instance of your HTTP session over here. Again, I am going to have a method, but this time the method is not going to be the set attribute or a get session, but this time it is going to be like, we are using a get session method over here, but we are writing a boolean value as false because we just wanted to have a pre-existing session which was there in the previous page. Okay, so there we have created a session. and I know that from each request, now the request which I'm going to send back to this second servlet file is associated with one session. Just wanted to have that session. I don't want a new sessions to be created if at all it is not attached. I just want, if the request is coming and if it is having any specific session attached to it, I just want the pre-existing session. So that's why I have mentioned it what as here false as a boolean value. So it will return to me that session. It is just going to accept the session along with the request from the first sublet file, and then it is going to come it over here. It is not going to create a new one. It is not my requirement that I don't want a new one to be created. Okay, now it has accepted the response, it has accepted this session, it has got this session. Now what is going to happen, now the value which I have set it over there using the set attribute into the variable called as uname inside the set attribute method. So that method, that the variable was holding one value, say for example abc. Okay, and that abc now I am just going to call, because the variable name was which I have given into the set attribute method was uname. So I just wanted to fetch that value, so I'm just going to use what method, get attribute method, and that value which is holding by this uname abc now is being stored inside your variable called as and it is going to be given you the hello statement, welcome message, or you can say anything, any message you can print it over here. Okay, so I hope that you have understood this. If you have any doubt, students, you can ask me. We have just done with the chapter. We have learned numbers of methods that how we can work with these sessions. Okay, along only this session is not going to work the way we want to make it work. Like if you want to track our information, if you want to make the if you want to store the information of the user, maintaining the state of the user, we need the methods along with the sessions. Okay, so I'll just stop sharing this now. If you have any doubt, you can just ask me, and then we can share, like I can share the attendance link with you all. Okay, just wait for 1 or 2 minutes. I'll just lock the meeting first, so that the students should not enter at the last moment. Okay, so there are 47 students we have in this lecture. I'll just share the attendance link. Just don't run away. I have to take the screenshot also. Okay, and by that time, if you have any doubt, you can just ask me. Okay, I've given you the attendance link, student. So just fill it up. I'll take the screenshot by that time. Don't leave.